Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Rick DiClemente. This is Astrology Unplugged, and this is starself.com astrology station, show number 275. So we're getting up there into our 6th year. I apologize to you because I announced the wrong date. I had the wrong date last week. This week is not Ksenia Moore. She's next week. She is the Australian wonderful astrologer. She will be next week, followed by the 30th with Christine Sumner, my good friend, who is a Pisces shaman. She's very, very good. And she'll be talking about using shamanistic powers to help yourself and not to be laughed at. I mean, she's got some real abilities, real similar to Deneen, another Pisces Pittsburgh shaman, but yet quite different. So I'm quite anxious to have her on. So tonight, what we're going to do, something popped into my head, and what I thought I would do, I think I try to do beginning type stuff, intermediate stuff, advanced stuff. I try to do the whole gamut because of the different types of people listening. I thought it'd be interesting tonight to talk to you about stereotypes that the sun signs get. Where do these stereotypes come from? What do they really mean? What are they really based in, etc.? And so I'm going to take each sign. Of course, we always start with Aries, and talk about what the stereotype is commonly, what is based on, what really the truth of it is that most people cannot express. And then I'm going to talk about the reality, what is very common. In other words, a lot of times the stereotypes are somewhat true. So you got to be very careful of this. You got to leave your ego at the door, because nobody's trying to hurt anybody's feelings. We're going to talk straight astrology and talk about where this stuff comes from, etc. Okay? Hello, Winnie. Nice to see you. Okay, how's your boy doing? Okay?
Yes, he's good. He's traveling the world at the
Oh
moment.
my God, he's just a ballet powerhouse. I don't know. You know what to call it. Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you. Okay, we're going to start with a sign Aries. And we're going to use this graph whenever it helps us. This is my teaching graph. We're going to start with the first sign. That's a cardinal fixed sign. Okay, now, if you know Aries in your life, try not to lock on to one Aries that you know. Try to think of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. That's when you really start to see what's Aries versus what's your friend. Okay, Aries has a reputation of being kind of selfish. They're a fun sign. They do have a reputation of everything has to be seen through their eyes. They can be selfish. A lot of them aren't, but that's why we worked hard in this book, to come up with the correct words. And the correct words that we used were self-oriented. Aries people learn a lot by expressing themselves, by their own experience. They don't learn about themselves by listening to you, what you experience. They learn about from their own self-experience. So the negative side of Aries is really not that bad, is the talk about them being selfish and being ego-centered, somewhat narcissistic. That can be true, but for the large part, most Aries people are really pretty darn pleasant. They live in the here and now more than any other sign that there is, and because of that, people like being around them. They like that feeling of centeredness. They come into the here and now by just being next to them. Now, what's really going on with the sign that you find in this book, because this book is really based on what's down deep in each sign, where's it really coming from. What's based in the sign Aries, Aries is a sign, it's the first sign of the zodiac. And when you're the first sign, you want to remember that you're first. And these people have a phenomenal need to have secret adventures on their own. And they love to challenge themselves to see what they can do. They get enamored with themselves. I know when I wrote this chapter, I had a hard time. It took me a long time to shift gears into thinking like an Aries does, because I don't think like one does. So I had to do that 12 different times, of course. Now, some of you are posting messages to me and I do not have the time to read them. And I apologize, and I will read them after the show. Now, so what happens with Aries? Aries is a very esoteric sign. This is the sign where God separates from himself and says, what happens if I go off by myself? What happens if I go off and what the Course in Miracles calls the mad idea that I could possibly be separate from myself? So we got this oneness. Now all of a sudden we got two-ness. So really a lot of things happened in what's called the fall of the great angel. Okay, where now there's separateness. So now you might be having fun being separate, but now we got a problem because we've lost our unity with God. Now we got separateness. So the real secret to Aries is, and the secret to the whole zodiac is, that if you're having trouble basically with your sun sign, your answer is always opposite you. Aries needs to develop the opposite sign inside themselves. Aries needs to develop the Libra part of them, which is opposite Aries. Aries is myself, me. Libra is ourselves, us. What do we do? Me, what do I do? Libra, what do we do? Libra finds its identity in many cases by the we. How do we work together? Libra, the ultimate sign of partnership. So it's a very misunderstood sign. An awful lot of Aries are categorized as selfish, and it's really not true. And coming down to the reality of the sign, sometimes it is true. Sometimes it is true. I know a lot of Libras Aries. I know a lot of Aries where I'll tell them the story and they'll have to tell the story back to me. And if it's coming from them, it's okay. But if the story came from me, it's not okay. They have to put their own personal stamp on it. This is something that's really necessary to them. I got a friend that knows it's not a far cry from one-upmanship. A lot of Aries will fall into the trap of trying to one-up you all the time, and which can become very irritating. But I have a friend who I talk to, and no matter what I say, he just repeats back to me what I just said, but now it's his idea, see, it's not mine. So usually it's rather harmless. Usually they're very pleasant people. Now, there are some things I want to say throughout the tour of the zodiac, okay? Aries often think they're right, and they're often wrong. Virgos often think they're right, and they're almost always right. Leos often think they're right, and they're oftentimes wrong, but they're not going to admit it. Scorpios want you to think they're wrong, but they're always right, but they want you to think that they think they're wrong. This took a lot of research. I'm not just BSing you here. So an Aries is a really pretty charming, delightful sign because it's fresh and it's innocent. It's the first sign of the zodiac and it's lighthearted. Now, unless somebody's got a whole ton of planets in Aries, and in that case, you just escort them to the door because you're not going to be able to handle it. Now, the next sign, Taurus. Taurus has a rather negative, not too bad, but they have somewhat of a negative reputation for being dull or being slow or being stingy, being myopic, living in a small world. Taurus, which Taurus is really about, is taking that Aries initiative and anchoring it, making things theirs. It's a sign of values. Make it mine. Let's get it anchored. Let's get it ours. Let's get it penetrated and grounded in the earth. So when you're with Taurus, Taurus can be very pleasant. They can make you feel very anchored. I got a woman friend on Facebook who's a wonderful Taurus, and every single day she's sending me pictures of plants and footprints and trails and rabbits. She's on her walk every day, and she's just looking in the weeds and looking at stuff, sending me pictures of trees and stuff. That's what Taurus does. They're very grounded. They want to be grounded. There's nothing wrong with it. And when you're with them, you often feel very grounded. There's seldom any sign of the zodiac that's more here and now than the signs Aries and Taurus, because they're simple signs. Now, what Taurus is supposed to be doing is developing the self into what it owns or what it has, what is around them. And what often happens with Taurus is Taurus can, not always, but they can end up living in a very small world because they don't need a big world. It's that simple. They just don't need a big world, and they're very content with very little. This doesn't necessarily make them myopic, but when I have readings for people that have Taurus parents, I always start out with the question, is the Taurus parent kind of narrow and myopic, or are they rather generous and bigger? And some of them who have bigger planets in their chart can be bigger and more giving and more extroverted, and they can have a bigger type of soul. Oftentimes clients have Taurus parents where there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. The Taurus knows everything. They're Archie Bunker. They see everything their way. It's their way and that way. And whatever you think doesn't matter at all. And they can be cruel. Taurus, especially the men. Women too, but the men, they can be a cruel sign because they absolutely don't see any reason for you to follow your point of view. It's invalid. It's not their point of view, so it can't be valid. So this is the real tough part of Taurus. And if you get that tough part going, like when a person has too many Taurus planets, it can be really, really rough. But most of Tauruses I know, and as I go through time now, I'm getting to become more and more affectionate with them. I find them to be more pleasant. They like to make you come in, be comfortable, give you a pillow, make you a sandwich, give you some iced tea. They like to make you feel comfortable. Now, I'm not going to suggest that you argue with an Aries or a Taurus, because you're not really going to get real far when you're arguing with these two signs. Okay, Aries is initial fire, so they kind of know everything. Taurus can be hard to argue with too, because they can be really fixed. I mean, they're a fixed earth sign. That means they're fixed to their position. But I found that in a large part, a lot of the stereotypes you get with Taurus to be untrue, unless they're really, really stubborn. If they're really, really fixed, then there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Just get out. Get out, because they're going to come back to their little tiny world where they're happy, and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, if you get the more pleasant Hobbit, the Hobbit is the Taurus. The Hobbit's got the furry feet, and he's got the fireplace, and he's got the drinking hot tea, and he's smoking his pipe. He's got his garden, and he's just really happy, really content with very little. And the butterflies are going by, and the windows are open, and the Taurus is just in heaven. So it can be a nice sign. And like all the signs have a good, a middle, and a bad side. They just do, depending on how we use them. Gemini. Gemini has quite a reputation for being very flippy, for being very scattered, being kind of childlike, changing the subject all the time, kind of scatterbrained. They can be changing the subject all the time. Now, this is one of the signs I will point out to you that differs. The Gemini man is different than the Gemini woman. Now, Gemini women tend to be much more critical, much more cutting tongue, by far. Usually Gemini men don't. They don't bother with it. They laugh things off. A lot of people I know have tons of Gemini friends, tons of Gemini male friends, because they're just a really friendly sign. They're real talkative and into everything. But the Gemini females can really cut up a rug. They can really be insulting, and they can really be cutting. One of the things that's little said about Gemini has to constantly face the ridicule of people around them saying to them, don't you have any feelings? What, don't you have any feelings? And this hurts them. They don't have deep feelings, but they still have feelings, and they get hurt by this. And when a Gemini is hurt, they'll attack back. Here's the secret to Gemini. Gemini does not want to be nailed down. Gemini is not made to take a position. They're not made to. And when you try to nail them to their position, they'll attack you. That's a given sign. When they attack you, that means you just about had them nailed correctly, and they change the subject and turn around by insulting you. Very Geminian. Another thing that's very Geminian. Geminis love and even need to objectify anybody around them. They talk about you in the room like you're an object instead of talking to you. They talk to you as if you're an object. And it's not far from true. They do see you as an object. Got it? Now, what the Gemini is supposed to be doing in its real essence is learning to think, learning to talk, learning to explore, learning to share their knowledge with others. And they're not made for deep research. They're made to be scattered across the surface. So the truth of the matter is, when you have a Gemini, usually they don't want to go deep into stuff because they're made to go laterally, and they just can't stand to be caught up in having to go deep in something. They feel like they're going to drown in it. They would rather be exploring this, exploring that. But the trouble with Gemini is simple. Gemini has a incessant need, and most people have incessant needs. Gemini has an incessant need to climb the fence and find out what's in the other yard. What's over there? Oh, what's over that fence? Oh, what's over that fence? Oh, the grass is greener over here. The grass is greener over here. Grass is greener over here. And what ends up happening, I knew I'd watch it with my mother. My mother had to be the first one to a party. She was a Gemini. She had to be the first one to the party. As soon as you hit the party, she had to be the first one to come home. So they're always very common. They're living in the future. The men aren't as bad. The women are definitely worse when it comes to this. Gemini men are much more let it go, laugh it off, okay, et cetera, et cetera. Here we go with that. So So what Gemini is supposed to be doing is exploring, but not getting hung up about it and realizing when they're exploring, they need to realize that sometimes more information is not going to help. Some of the most advanced Geminis I know just are obsessed with gathering more data, more information, more phone calls, more books, more sharing, more stuff. And after a while, you got to say to yourself, what for? What's it doing for you? Because after a while, it's just got to stop. And that's why the 12 signs all need each other. They do. And they're all liars. All 12 signs will lie to you. And they'll say, you listen to me, don't listen to them. I'll tell you what to do. And they're all lying. They're all overconfident. And if there's any sign that is got it all, you would be Aquarius and Pisces. But that's not an easy subject. So the thing about Geminis is very common is they can't stand being caught. They can't stand being caught. Like if they say something, they're famous for saying something that's not really research. It's not really true. And if you call them on it, they change the subject. Or then when you really got them, then they insult you for why you're attacking them. So usually it's harmless. And I did forget to mention one thing, and it kind of plays in here. One other thing about Aries, and I will go back and forth a little bit because it's just too hard to do the zodiac in one fell swoop. Aries people, now listen up, Zoe. Aries people want to fight. They want to fight. They don't want knockdown blowout. But if you got a problem, say what's on your mind, put it on the table. The argument lasts 2 minutes, and it's over. And they're really kind people. They're not going to hold a grudge. It's over with. Where the Cancers go, oh, you insulted me about 6 years ago, you know. And the Aries says, oh, Christ, you know. So when you're with an Aries in general, unless you got a really bad one, just get what you got to say out on the table. Get it out. Say it. They're going to respond sharply, and then it's over. And you move on. Now, Geminis are similar. And I just hate to tell you this, but you know me and my show, I try to speak the truth as I know it. Okay? When you're done arguing with a Gemini, they're usually going to insist upon being right. Okay? And good luck if you think you're going to turn that around, because you're not going to. They're a smart sign. They know a lot of things, but they don't know everything, just like the rest of the zodiac doesn't. It's a fascinating world. This exquisite zodiac is just unbelievable how complex each sign is, how different they are from each other. I got an Aries cat that won't sit still. Okay, Cancer, completely different sign than the first three. Cancers are very emotional, first sign of the emotions. They're a leader also, and they're known as a stereotype for being touchy, maybe even bitchy. They're known for being very dependent, being very sensitive. What they're here to do is to be sensitive. They're the first sign that really is very, very sensitive. And I teach them when I can to tell other people, just deal with it. If you don't like it, deal with it. Cancer, stop defending yourself. If you're moody, then be moody. Don't worry about it. I've paused the recording. I can't deal with that. Okay. Back with Cancer. Now, Cancer is a very tough sign because it's the first sign that has to start learning how to deal with emotions, and the soul's not ready to yet. It's not ready to. It's the first taste it's had of water. So therefore, by definition, Cancer is dependent. It just is. Now, whether it's dependent versus ultra dependent are two different stories. Now, what they're supposed to be is a sign that becomes initiatory in terms of taking care of how they feel, taking care of their feelings, being very sensitive and guarded with their family, how the family feels, very defensive of the family, very family defined. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's just the soul can only go so big in each step. Now, the trouble with Cancer, and this is true, this is true, this is real, this needs to be looked at. When a Cancer feels that you're no longer servicing them, when you're no longer taking care of them, they will just cut off the relationship. Zip. And it can be very sudden. It can appear very selfish, but that's what the Cancer's here for. They have to take care of themselves. So that's one of the worst traits of Cancer. In reality, most Cancers are wonderful people. They are very warm and they're very good ears listening to you. They're very caring and they'll remember your story when you talked about yourself the last time, et cetera, et cetera. But they need extra TLC compared to other signs. They just do. They just need extra TLC. Now, it's a tough sign because it's a sign, it's the first episode in the journey of 12 where the zodiac really has a need to take care of itself. And when you got a strong need to take care of yourself, it can look bitchy, it can look stifled, and it can look arrogant. Sometimes Cancers are, but you have to just look through. Now, one of the main things in a Cancer's chart is you got to look at where the moon is. The moon is a big deal. It's almost like a second sun sign. The moon is in Sag, the moon is at the top of the chart, the moon is in Leo. That really helps a lot. The moon is in a buoyant fire sign, it's up. But if you got a Cancer with the moon in Pisces, or you got a Cancer with a moon in Taurus, or you got a Cancer with a moon in Cancer, and they're too sensitive, then what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do about it. You know, they grow up saying, he hurt my feelings. He hurt my feelings. Look at this failure of a president that we just had. He's a Gemini, but he's got a bucket pattern to the moon. And he just spent all his time talking about how people treated him so unfairly, and they're so unfair, and they're so unfair. In his reality, they were. In real reality, they weren't. So it's a tough sign. It's a very necessary sign. It's a very strong sign. They make very strong business people, the men and the women both. Really, really good business mind because they're no fooling around. They know how to treat people. They have a great idea how to treat their clients like family, and that's why the family comes back. The clients keep returning. But Cancers are usually, when you get alone with them, they're usually warm and fuzzy and just very childlike, and a lot of TLC. Is when you're with them in public, they can become a little harder or appear to be colder. And it's not that they're cold, they're just protecting, they're going in that Cancer shell. They're protecting themselves. Well, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. I did this many times years ago, but a little rusty. It's a little tougher to do. Moving on to the fifth sign of Leo, a fixed fire sign. Leo is get the bad rap all the time, the bad stereotype of being ego-centered, got to have the limelight, you got to have all the attention. You're never wrong, okay? The one thing I have found, without a doubt, there is no sign in the zodiac that's more jealous than Leo. It ain't Scorpio, it's Leo. Jealousy problems are Leo problems. Now, what are they supposed to be doing? Well, when you see what this book is in many ways, and it's got several different paths, but what this book is, it tells you why one sign is the way it is and how it has to evolve into the next sign, and it evolves into the next sign. So each sign is an outgrowth of the sign before it. So one of the things that you have to realize when you're with a Leo, you scratch just below the surface and there's a Cancer there. There's Cancer there. There's a real sensitive, the little bit insecure Cancer there, but the Cancers don't want you to know it. I'm sorry, the Leo doesn't want you to know it because the Leo is like a teenager. I know everything. I'm 16. Where's my car? Let's go. I know what the hell I'm doing. Let's go. That's why in the ages in this book, we parallel each sign to a certain age of a child growing up. And the preteen is the Cancer, and the teenager is the Leo. So what Cancer is, what Leo is given this strong sense of, I'm not the problem, it's you. That's a hell of a gift. It ain't me, it's you. Nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. What's Robert De Niro say in Taxi Driver? You talking to me? You're talking to me? So that's why Leo is all about dignity and pride, because that's what gets oomphed in this sign is you want to know what a Leo wants. A Leo wants respect. You get with a Leo and don't show respect and you're done. Leo needs and wants respect. And that's how the Leo grows, because the ultimate charge, the ultimate job of a Leo is to grow in confidence. So that's why the limelight, because they're looking for strokes. They're looking for kudos. Boy, you did a good job. Man, did you sing that song great. Boy, you can really play that thing great. Boy, you're really good. Okay? So what happens ultimately as you watch these souls come through readings and go through the years, what you see with a Leo is so hungry at first for getting validation, but later on in life, they don't need it because they give it to themselves. So a lot of things about the signs that you get about halfway through and they kind of get over the initial charge, such as Libra. Libra has this charge initially of being with a partner, gotta have a partner. And when they get older, they kind of get over it. They get much better at it. You don't need one as much as you think. And a Cancer, who is so attached to the family and so dependent upon the family unit. As they get older, they become more and more dependent upon themselves. So it's very common in the zodiac that we start to see that. So one of the other things that's very common here, Leo women are much less of a pain in the butt than the Leo men are. Because the ego works on the male much better than it does the female. And you'll find many more Leo women Well, they can be arrogant too, but you'll find many more Leo women that are much more balanced and kind and magnanimous than the men. The men like to sit in front of that mirror and practice their speeches. They're enamored with what they can do. So, what's really meant for, what Leo's meant for, take your strokes, grow in confidence, and get bigger. But what they're not meant for is a bottomless pit of, I want all the attention in the room. I want all the attention in the room. I have 3 Leo uncles, and they're all wonderful, and they were all real good to the kids. But there was a sense when you were with them that they were all competing. Who's going to be center stage? They're all funny. Leos are always full of light, and they're full of stories, and they're warm, and they're very demonstrative. So the Leo has to learn, and I realized this writing the book, and I thought it was really accurate. Leos live in a finite universe. There's only so much applause. There's only so many raises. There's only so many jobs. There's only so many people can sing on stage. There's only so many Academy Awards. There's only so much attention. It's not true. Not true at all. But that's one of the things Leo has to live through and gain. Leo people can be very, very warm and giving, especially the women. They can be very generous and warm. So you can see, I've told you through so many weeks now, the rest of the chart's a big deal. The rest of your chart is a big deal. There's so much in the rest of your chart. There really is. And that's why I'm not being stupid here or greedy. You need to get your chart done at least once by a good astrologer. You need to find out what's in your chart. I was just doing a chart tonight. Guy, 5 planets in Virgo, 3 planets in Sag. Well, my God, his story is completely different than just somebody with all the Virgo without the Sag. And that's very common. So don't walk around with your little medallion around your neck of your sun sign because you're over-identifying with it. And I've told you many times, most people, almost everybody, has 4 or 5 signs in their chart strongly represented. 4 or 5. Not usually 3, not usually 6, usually 4 or 5. And I've done shows where I took each person and told them what your 4 or 5 signs were in terms of relative strength. Okay, let's move on to Virgo. Virgo's a tough sign. I spend so much of my time talking about Virgo. I've done so many videos on it. I've talked about it. I'm very glad that when we rewrote the Virgo chapter in the book, I got tired of hearing about the perfectionistic qualities, and I replaced it with 2 new words. And I was very happy with those 2 new descriptors for Virgo: purity and caring. Think of the Virgos you know. They're very pure in almost every way in their life, and they're very caring. Go in a hospital, count the number of Virgo nurses in there. You're not going to believe it. Count the number of Virgo repairmen coming to your house, or construction workers that are trying to build something they care about how well it's made. That's a Virgo trait. They just don't understand somebody that doesn't care. They don't understand a nurse that won't work overtime without bitching about it. They don't understand it. They just care. It's in them. As a matter of fact, what's in them, maybe I'll do a show on this some night. What's in them too much, and it's a bitch to get out, is this sense of always having to be productive. Maybe I'll do a show on that some night. Like some signs have a certain essence that's just so strong, they can't get it, can't get rid of it. Virgos have this tremendous sense of you got to fix this thing, you got to make sure it's working right, get it working just right, you got to care, and they just don't understand people that don't understand it. Therefore, they can be wonderful employees, wonderful people. They can be shy on the side of emotions because Virgo men especially are not good with emotions. They're just not built for it. They're made to be hardworking, and they see emotions as troublesome. So they can be known as picky, etc., picayune, etc., etc. Usually depends on the chart. Virgos are not the ones to go to when you got to cry on somebody's shoulder. Keep on walking. Don't stop and talk to the Virgo. They don't want to hear it. Okay? Just don't want to hear it. They're not made for it. They're made to tighten up their belt and keep on moving. That's what Virgo is. Now, one of the things that I've talked a lot about, and I got special videos out there just on Virgo, one of the things about them that's so poignant is they're made to fix things. They're just made to fix things, even if nothing's wrong with it. They think they got to fix something. They think something's broken. Well, this is a real issue. Because what does this say about God? What does this say? This is a Virgo trait, Capricorn trait. God, you're always sending me seconds. Why are you always sending me seconds? Here's a sign that's very appreciative of God, a very reverent sign, very much into goddess. But what does it say if everything you send me is broken? Everything is second. If that's got a rip in it, that doesn't look good. You know what's wrong with that? So the Virgo has to learn. This is tough. They have to learn to fix things when it's needed, but to tell that fixing part to calm down. That's why the first step I go through with Virgos, and most of my readings are Virgo women, without a doubt. The first step I believe you have to go through with a Virgo personality is to try to help them not freak out. Don't panic. The dishes didn't get done. The dishes didn't get done. You got to take the panic out. It's tough. Another thing that's very true, Virgos need permission from somebody else for them to go have a good time or go on vacation. They can't go on vacation unless somebody gives them permission. And by God, is that the truth? It's unbelievable, but it's just true. And that's because they've got this tremendous sense of one word in their brain, and that word is should. They're just obsessed with what they should do. And I can't criticize them. I can't blame them. I took a lot of time to try to figure out what does the word should mean. I'm really serious. I took a lot of time, months, trying to figure out what does the word should mean and what it means. In my mind, it's somebody else's opinion. But they have such a strong sense of what they should do. Did I do something wrong? Did I do what I shouldn't do? It's just so strong, and that it really has to be battled against, because Virgo is a very pure sign. They're loving people. They're always going to get hired because everybody sees how talented and how responsible they are. But they don't have to work as hard as they think they do. They don't have to perfect everything as hard as they think they do. As a matter of fact, there's no doubt in my mind, the number one illness in astrology is Virgo people with intestinal problems. It's obvious. The stuff in your body can't go from point A to point Z. It can't flow through. Why can't it? Because you're stopping the conveyor belt. Start it, stop it, start it, up, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, start it, stop it. So you're trying to figure out all the bodily fluids you got in there trying to flow through you, and they're starting and stopping, and your organs in your body and your muscles, all they do is pay attention to what the brain says. Start it, stop it, start it, stop it. So I really think that's accurate. And I really work a lot with Virgos. And the last 10 years, since Neptune's been over in Pisces, Neptune's been in the opposite sign of Virgo. Neptune's been helping these Virgos get better. Neptune's the opposite. Let things flow, let things go, don't worry about it. So the last 10 years, Virgos have made a lot of progress. They're doing a lot better. But this issue of them thinking that everything can be fixed, everything's broken can be fixed, or it's your fault because you didn't work hard enough on this, it's not true. Tough sign, tough sign. Libra's next, another tough sign. First sign of the last 6, first sign of the us, first sign where the personality is getting self-instruction from sharing with the other. This is why the partnership of Libra is so important. Libras never go into business by themselves, never. Always with another partner. Until they get older, then they can handle it. It's very common. Libras have 3 or 4 marriages. The stereotype Libra is that they're wishy-washy, that they can't make up their mind, can't make a decision, but that they're pleasant. And one of the stereotypes is that they're a social climber. These things can be true. Libras can be very, very pleasant and tactful people, but they gotta watch out. They gotta watch out because, in my opinion, Libra is the Aries of the second half of the zodiac. Aries is the first sign of the first half. Libra is the Aries of the second half. So they have to watch out because they can have an arrogance about them, but it's not a self-arrogance. It's about we are. Look who we are, honey. Aries is me. Look at who I am. Libra is us. Look at who we are. Okay, so the Libra has to watch out that it doesn't get too high on the identity that it shares with its partner, or that it uses its partner for its identity. And it's got to realize that I can improve my own identity by itself. Libra is a sign that does not realize till much too late that they're much stronger than they think. Very, very smart, savvy, street smart sign. Winners almost always have beautiful partners. They have nice jobs, nice houses. They're just winners. They know how to win. They know how to win at the game of life. So they can be very, very pleasant. And the rest of the chart has to help them when it comes to warmth. They're kind and they're tactful, but they're not real warm sign, warm and fuzzy, like with Cancer or with Pisces. So you want that to come about. So Libra is given the gift in the zodiac of learning how to partner with somebody else. That's what the gift of Libra is. Now, the gift of Scorpio, which is next. Scorpio is the sign of real intense closeness. When you hear all these soap operas and hear all these talks about intimacy, it's not a Libra thing. It's not a Taurus thing. It's not a Cancer thing. It's a Scorpio thing. Scorpio is about let's get tight. Okay. Now, when you get tight, comes the heat in the kitchen and the drama. And soap operas are one thing. Soap operas are scorpionic because so much of your life depends on what your partner just did. Instead of what did you do? It's Scorpio, what did your partner just do? And they're obsessed with intimacy. The word that Scorpio is obsessed with, without a doubt, is the word betrayal. Just don't bring up the word betrayal around the Scorpio. Who knows Scorpios? You ever seen one of them betrayed? Or they think they've been betrayed, which same thing. Because they are built to never betray somebody else. Now, do they or not? That's up to them. But betrayal is a big, big issue. And they're built to be strong. Your ex betrayed you. Well, I do not doubt you whatsoever. But Scorpios, it comes down to one simple fact. And when I wrote this chapter, I couldn't believe it. When I wrote this chapter, I couldn't believe that it was written so quickly. I thought it'd take me months. It took 2 days. Okay, I need to stop with the chat messages. The story about Scorpios. Do they hate themselves? The story. They hate themselves, then get out. Because they're going to hate you and they're going to hate everybody. Because they're going to see themselves as weak. They're going to see everybody else as weak. They're going to see everybody else's betrayal. If they're not, if they don't hate themselves and they've learned self-love, they can be wonderful. Just wonderful people. Powerful, very strong emotionally, very giving, very loving, very bold, very strong. But it comes down to that one thing. Do they hate themselves? If they've learned self-compassion, then they're fine. What were they given? They were given intense feelings. Fixed water. Fixed water is ice. They can be wonderful people. If they hate themselves, get the hell out. Don't ask any questions. Just get out. And it ain't got nothing to do with you anyway. It's all got to do with them. Who knows some bad Scorpios in their life? Okay. Can you sense how much they hated themselves? Can you sense that they brought that same feeling to everybody around them? Who knows good Scorpios? There's some wonderful ones out there. Just wonderful. They'll jump in front of a train to protect you. Courageous people, wonderful, strong, tough sign, very tough, very tough. Why? It's the first planet. It's the first sign that's ruled by an outer planet. And all of a sudden you got Libra ruled by nice old Venus. Here comes Scorpio ruled by Pluto. Well, it's the first sign like, what the hell is this Pluto thing? When you're ruled by the outer planets, things get very intense because things become very operative on the collective and the karmic level. Very Scorpio, very karmic sign, very much the collective. So that's what's going on with America now. Now, next week, I really suggest you tune into me and Ksenia, because Ksenia is a brilliant astrologer. She studied all over the world. She'll tell us a lot about the Australian view of things. She's very much aware of what's happening in the US. She and I are going to talk about what we think is in store for the rest of the world for the rest of 2022. She doesn't fool around. She's very charming and intelligent. She studied many systems. But one of the things that's happening is Pluto is very, very active in the US chart right now. And that's why things are so tough now, because Pluto wants us all to draw upon and summon our own power. Period. And we've never had to do that before. I guess in some ways, World War II. That's what's going on. That's why things are tough. We're having to summon power from within ourselves instead of our dependent Cancer nature, 4th of July, depending on the government to do it for us. So we're going to have a real hell of a time next week talking about all these issues worldwide. Next sign, Sagittarius, the 9th sign. Now, the 9th sign is interesting because what happens here, you'll see in the book, this is the quadrant of relationships. All these signs are relationship, Libra, Scorpio, Sag. By the time you get to Sag, you're done with personal relationships. Now it's relationships on a bigger scale. It's other countries, other philosophies, exchange students, universities. You're on a bigger scale rather than Libra partner, Scorpio partner. You've gotten past that. Now you're on a much bigger scale. So Sagittarius is a very big sign. They want to do things bigly. Like Susan, she wants to travel the whole damn United States. She ain't going over part of it. She's going over the whole thing. Why? Because she wants to. That's why. You never ask a Sag why they're doing something, because they want to. That's why. Why'd you change your major 6 times? Because I changed my mind 6 times. That's why. Because they just want to try everything. So it's a very big sign. Now, of all the signs, Sag should have much more of a negative stereotype than it does. It really deserves it because it really gets a lot of people into a lot of trouble. But it ends up being the lucky sign, the sign with the less amount of stereotypes. If there's any stereotype to Sag, it's that they're kind of frivolous and that they promise and they don't deliver. These things are somewhat true. They're happy people, they're fun people. Their motto is, if it ain't fun, I'm not doing it. But what's not seen, and what is often the case, is when there's responsibility involved, they drop the ball and they run and they leave it up to Capricorn, the next sign, to take care of it. And so that's where they get off a little easier than the other signs do. But mostly Sagittarius are a lot of fun people. They're intelligent, they're very philosophical, they're fun-loving. They're just the people you want to go bowling with or go to the lake with or go shopping with, because they're slapping you on the back and having a drink, and they just don't worry about stuff. God, don't worry about it. This here with the shoulder, that's a Sagittarian shoulder. What the heck? That's a Sagittarian move. Well, after a while, this doesn't answer everything. This doesn't answer all the questions. And that's why they get off easy. But anyhow, usually a pretty good sign happy-go-lucky, fun-loving. And they just don't like to burden themselves with things that are not fun. Think about that. Well, I don't burden myself with things that are not fun. Well, excuse me. You see Bette Midler burdening herself with things that are not fun? No. You see Jon Stewart? No. Just their nature. Anyhow, pretty much fun sign. Oh boy, here we go. The last three signs. Capricorn, probably the worst reputation in zodiac. Some of it's deserved. The reputation for being a bummer, for being too serious, for being too slow, for being too sad, too pessimistic. Sag or Capricorn is given this tremendous sense of duty and responsibility, just like Virgo, similar. Where Virgo is fix everything, Capricorn is make sure it works. If you know Capricorn, I don't care what they're doing, they're always making sure. That's what they do. They make sure. Who knows Capricorns? What are they always doing? Making sure. You give a job to them, you want to make sure it gets done. Well, what's that say about them and God? You're always giving me jobs that are incomplete. What's going on here? So Capricorn is very much a father of the zodiac. Just like opposite, Cancer is the mother. Capricorn has a bad rap. They really do get treated unfairly compared to what value they bring to the zodiac, because they bring seriousness that makes the whole thing work. They're ruled by Saturn with an ice ring around it. Why do you think the ice ring is there? The ice ring there is there to contain them, to make sure things work, things operate. But a lot of people don't like a ring around them. They feel sequestered, they feel achy, they feel limited. That's why Capricorn has a very bad reputation for bad knees, bad legs, bad joints, all kind of illnesses. If it weren't for Saturn, Saturn is by far the most important planet in your chart. Yes, it can be a pain in the butt, but without Saturn in your chart, nothing would get done. You would take things lightly. You wouldn't worry about it. Saturn makes you worry about it so much till you get it done right. That's the benefit of having a strong Saturn. Saturn is the planet that makes you successful. Why? Because it just stays on your back until you succeed. That's why. So it's a tough sign. One thing very few people know, Capricorn children, they start out old, they have an old nature, like an old man. And as they grow older, they become younger. And that's because as they get older, they have conquered the world. They've assured their place so well that they worry less as they get older. Capricorn's a tough sign. And I'm a double one. My dad was one. And I must say, in all honesty, I think Capricorns have a lot of trouble. I think Capricorns have a lot of trouble. It's a tough sign to be a positive one. I know plenty of really good ones, but it's a tough one to be cheery and optimistic. It's a tough sign. It's not made for that. Now we get into your ultimate sign, because your ultimate sign really is Aquarius. And I used to think the ultimate sign was Pisces, the final one. But Pisces is so difficult that I pulled it back one. The 11th sign of Aquarius, There's just nothing like it. This one here. It's a fixed air sign. And I could be oversimplifying things. The reason it's such a good sign, these are really some good people. Almost every Aquarian you meet, just really good folks. This is a sign that doesn't bother other people. They're very tolerant of others. They're very idealistic, very, very friendly. They don't need other people. They don't need you. They don't need you commenting on their idea. They don't need you agreeing with their idea. As a matter of fact, when you try to get them to share someone else's idea, they would be better off if they did. They can be very, very stubborn, sticking to their own idea. Their negative side stereotype is that they're flaky or they're weird or they don't fit in. That can be true. That's because they're open to everything. They're just open to stuff. Look at that bug on that leaf. And they'll just sit there and stare and just see the most fascinating thing about that bug on that leaf. And if you look at them objectively with them, you're going to sit there and go, yeah, you're right. Because they're just really open. They're the scientists. They're the explorers. They're the great big minds. They're the inventors. It's a great sign. It's a great sign. Now, one of the things that they're given is they're given this tremendous sense of self. They don't need to confer with others. Opposite the zodiac is Leo. Leo, everything I do, I got to get okay and get strokes from everybody else. Aquarius is, what are we doing as a group? I don't need strokes from anybody. I'm confident. Are you confident? Yeah, it's fine. Most Aquarians go underneath the radar. You don't even know they're there because they're so confident and they're so happy and they're so complacent, and they never get bored because they just find everything in the world so interesting. Gemini's always bored. Aquarius never bored. Never bored because they just are fascinated with life. Ooh, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at that. Wow, 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 wow. The geniuses that we have. So it's a good sign, by no means perfect. If I had to choose, if I have to come back, and I don't want to come back, if I have to come back next time, I want to be an Aquarius. Everybody else is picking Sagittarius because they think they're going to have a party the whole time. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be a Sag. I'm going to be Aquarius, number 11. Okay. Final sign, Pisces. Tough sign. Tough sign. As you know, the original title of this book was Pisces, the Ultimate Sign. And then I changed the title as we were writing because I thought people wouldn't understand. And I've since changed my tune because it's really hard to be a Pisces. It's hard to be a Cancer. It's hard to be a Pisces because they're two really emotional signs. Pisces has no ambition. They don't care. They don't care about the job or money or place to stay. They don't care. Their middle name is nothing matters. Nothing matters. Well, you can get your butt in a lot of trouble by walking around thinking that nothing matters. Also, you can follow a lot of gurus who are going to tell you the same thing, that nothing matters. Nothing does matter unless you give it self-ascribed meaning. You give it the meaning yourself. You ascribe the meaning to it. So that's why it's tough. And that's why I've told you it's very hard to get a really healthy, strong Pisces, such as Deneen Joyner and my guest 2 weeks from now, Christine Sumner. We're very strong, healthy Pisces. And they weren't strong, healthy Pisces all the time. They had to develop it because the Pisces impetus is to work against the ego. Pisces is non-self. 11 signs all about the self, Pisces non-self. And that's rough because what the non-self means is I've worked for 11 signs to get the self so advanced and to learn so much. I've worked for 11 signs and I'm so completed in the sign of Aquarius, but that's exactly what the problem is. The problem is right here. Because at this point right here, where Aquarius meets Pisces is the toughest part of the zodiac. That's the part of the zodiac where the self has to give up being a self. That's not easy to talk about. I spent a lot of time in that book explaining this. So Pisces people don't have a sense of self, and that's the very reason that they get this negative label put on them as being lazy, being into drugs, hiding out, lying, stealing, no backbone, no ambition. Well, see, it's a fine line between I don't have ambition because I don't care if I have a Mercedes. You have the Mercedes, it's okay. I don't need one. That's a kind of healthy attitude versus I just don't care about anything. Let me sit here on the beach, smoke a doobie, and I don't care about anything. So that's the problem with Pisces. The difference between laying on the beach and just not caring about anything versus not caring in a healthy way, not getting hung up on. I spent a lot of time in this book explaining about a healthy Pisces because most Pisces do not know what they are. They don't understand it. They never get chosen on the basketball team. They're chosen last on the volleyball team because they don't have any, hey, let's get them, let's go beat those guys. They don't have that. They're not competitive. They're more bigger and inclusive and loving and quiet and non-judging. That's where their beauty comes in. And when it comes down to it, their gifts are the best of the zodiac. The two gifts that they have are the best of the zodiac. And that is faith and that's belief. They have faith in God. They have belief that things will work out okay. And other signs don't have this. When I get to the end of readings, almost everybody that's not a Pisces says to me, okay, but how do you do this? Okay, but how do I do it? I understand what you're saying, but how do I do it? Pisces don't ask me how. Pisces knows that Spirit's going to guide them. That's a big deal. I know I talk a lot, but think about some of the things I'm telling you. These are major, major insights. Pisces knows that God's got their back. That's a big deal. Other signs don't. You talk to them, other signs, some signs say, who you talking about? Who? What back? What? So that's the trouble with Pisces. It's a hard sign to be. Another thing about them, I've found them to be very common with criminals. A lot of Pisces are outright criminals, murderers. And the reason they go so awry, I think, is because they're a weak sign. They're just a weak sign compared to the rest of the chart. And they can't stand up. Say in the rest of the chart, you've got some aggravated issues or some destructive tendencies or some dominating tendencies. The Pisces can't stand up to it and push it down. And that's why oftentimes they get into theft, they get into alcoholism all the time, and oftentimes into criminality. Now, it's not their inherent nature to be a thief or to be off color. It's their inherent nature to be more like Christ. Because Christ, in my opinion, was the ultimate Pisces. You think about all the good things you've heard about Jesus the Christ. That's what real Pisces is like. But you see, Jesus was not weak. He was not ambitionless. He didn't have a weak backbone. That's the difference. So that's why, if you're going to be a Pisces, or if you have one, it's a tough sign. If you are around Pisces, or you're around Pisces children, listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're saying. Dad, I talked to a ghost in my room last night. Listen to what they're telling you. Because they did. Dad, I talked to an angel last night. They did. Don't doubt them. Very universal sign, very beyond the norm. And you see, that's why they get in trouble. They're just beyond the earth. Everybody else down there fussing with cars and money and banks. Places could care less. So anyhow, I hope tonight helped you. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. But I tried to show you that each sign has its plus side. It's got its negative stereotype, and then it's got its side it's really supposed to be. And again, you'll see by studying our weekly astrology that you are much more than just your sun sign. Any questions, anybody, you all? 5, 4.
You
Okay.
covered so much.
Yeah, I know. And I used to do it for 2 or 3 hours straight, and that makes you tired.
It
Anyhow,
would come down to individuals because
yeah.
you'd say, well, why is Joseph Mengele, a
Pisces.
Pisces?
Yeah.
Right.
And his illness was not because he was Pisces. He had it in the rest of his chart. Some of our worst people on the planet ever were Pisces. It's true. Anyhow, I'm glad we're all a mixture. I want to repeat, next week is the wonderful Ksenia Moore out of Australia. I think it's Brisbane. She's out of, and she has a big following. You can find her on YouTube. She's just delightful, and she's really erudite and smart and quick, and she knows a lot more than I do about the broader field of astrology. She found me one day, figure that out. And then the following week will be Christine Sumner, another Pisces, who will be talking about shamanism, and you'll hear about how she got herself into some deep waters, no pun intended, and she got herself out of it. She went to shamanistic school, and she trained herself in some rather esoteric fields. So I think you'll find them both interesting. Plus, the next 2 weeks, I'm off because I have guests. So
You deserve it.
thank you,
You
Erica.
hardworking Capricorn, double Capricorn.
Thank you for hard work, double Capricorn.
You work too hard.
I know. What am I going to do? Retire and then die? Can't do that. We're coming up
This-
on 300, so I got to figure out who's going to be my guest on my 300th show. I got some ideas, but we got 25 more shows to go. Salute to everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you
Everybody
for joining.
This is great.
Winnie, thanks for joining us, honey.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great week.
Bye, everybody.